button, Eric?
We are not done.
No, it's still going. We can just
Still
keep going.
going.
We've got some good record time.
Okay, I do have something that I want to talk about. That's
Yeah.
a more vanilla topic,
Lay it on.
which is I got my past lives read like last weekend.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I've been really interested in doing that
Yeah.
recently.
Who were
and I haven't done
you?
it professionally.
I was I got my I was from Alpha Centauri is what the reading was.
Past
Past lives, yeah. So like almost all of my incarnations were residing in Alpha Centauri before incarnating into
What's
this.
Alpha Centauri?
Alpha Centauri is like it's another star that's like the closest star from here that is considered to be the candidate for like human habitability. But like the I should just pull up the thing because it has there's a whole list of like qualities that people or spirits that had manifested in Alpha Centauri were.
Cool.
This was
Yeah.
was this with a person you were?
This was with a
talking to
person, yeah.
before?
There was I met with a Akashic recall specialist. So she accessed the Akashic records, like the collective unconscious, something or other. Yeah, it's a chill place apparently, but there's like a process to doing it.
Oh yeah.
And then she had a lot to write into this report, which I have here.
Sweet.
Pulled it up by email. Very convenient.
I've also been getting more interested in doing it.
No kidding.
Like,
Yeah.
randomly during tarot readings, multiple different readers have been like, hey, Akashic Records, you just need to
Yeah.
know about that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't do.
I recently did a thing for the first time, and it was getting my Vedic astrology read.
Okay. Different astrology system,
Different
yeah.
astrology system, but one of the things, the woman who is a homie of the TS, Meg Dwyer, if you guys know her, she does Vedic astrology readings.
Okay.
And she's really good at it. And
Nice.
I went and got my reading from her, and she was saying that I should go to somebody to read past lives. And because it might be useful in some way. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Why do we call it past lives? Couldn't it
That's
just
true.
as easily
Fine.
be future lives?
They probably could. I mean, considering the mechanism of time, yeah, it could.
Justin Hyman just
It's like, yo.
preach, brother.
I've also heard people say that that they're kind of like anti-doing past life readings, because if you're not picking that up right now, then it's something that you don't necessarily need to know.
Sure. Sure.
I didn't particularly learn anything new from it.
Yeah.
It was mostly affirmations of the person that I already knew that I was. Even before looking into astrology, tarot, Akashic recall, any of that stuff, I was like, yeah, I am this person. I was pretty confident and comfortable in my own identity. So having it viewed from a different perspective was interesting, but not particularly anything new.
But
I have a
super fun.
question.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So was it affirming of the accuracy of the meeting? That they were telling you things that they should not necessarily have known about you, but you know about you, and that these things were confirming that what they were reading had something to do with who you are, not just...
Yes, but she wasn't a complete stranger. I had met her through a referral, Sarah.
Okay.
Well, this is Sarah.
No, this is somebody that Sarah had
referred.
met.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so there could be any number of interactions that could have happened without my knowledge regarding me, because sometimes people talk about me and I don't know about it, and that could have influenced it. Or any other number of things could have influenced it.
Sure.
It didn't necessarily matter that that happened or not, but yeah, the accuracy was pretty high. I only had 2 interactions with this person, so that was interesting to go ahead and see it, because it was nothing new, but it was in a new perspective. That was the important thing for me, and that was the curiosity spark.
Sure.
Yeah. You had a question?
Yeah, well, I've always wondered about, if there's any uniformity between lifetimes, or, as lifetimes pass, if a spirit becomes more and more uniform, even to the extent where, their embodiment might be kind of similar each lifetime, their body, they might kind of have a similar look in each lifetime, or if there is some kind of uniformity, or if it's just random, you're a cat and then you're a shopkeeper.
Or maybe you're the
Yeah.
opposite thing every life.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's any kind of
That's a good thing to wonder. I feel
An
like
endlessness of the soul or something.
if the mechanisms of physics are being modeled,
Everyone's
One-
like a
one
tea
might-
leaf to me now.
one might assume that something such as this might occur at the quantum level and thus be subject to quantum indeterminacy.
Sure.
Meaning that random may be a strong word if we're talking about true random, but along a probability spectrum.
So you're saying it's more
Perhaps.
probable that it's a bit scattered and not
No, what I'm
uniform.
saying is it might be scattered in some ways that we would recognize or not, but if we were to take this one thing, uniformity of form influencing a probability spectrum wherein souls, we'll call them, are directed toward things, in incarnations that are similar in form,
Oh, yeah.
that might occupy, a range of chance. But
The desires of the person's spirit even to learn certain things maybe, or to step into really different situations too.
Yeah, which then I think brings up questions of like closing loops or things like that, where, maybe you didn't quite get to what you needed to in this lifetime, but in another lifetime you're getting to it. Maybe you're avoiding it in 20 lifetimes, but really diving in deep on this specific one over here. And like you were saying, they may not all be before or after, it could, like, some could be happening over here where it's in the it's in the future based on what time we're in here, but because that soul, I guess, could be playing out in multiple time periods at the same time on a quantum level, then it's subject to another form of time where I like to think about it kind of like the way that like how life feels different when I've really internalized a feeling or a thought. Like, until I really have accepted a feeling, for example, like, my twin and I don't live with each other anymore. Physically, that started being true at a time, but I didn't really accept that was really true for quite some time afterward. And it wasn't until I really accepted that we weren't like the unit that we used to be, that my life started changing in a certain way, And then that has ripple effects out into this life, other lives, theoretically, I guess.
What's a manifestation of energy, right? And it's also, if we're talking about physics and quantum physics, like observability is a pretty big thing about how the energy is manifested.
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like if we have an abundance of lives that are stacked, right, imbricated forever even, then there's, in my mind, the distinct possibility that the observation that catalyzes the collapse of the waveform is in itself consciousness.
Right. And it could be that all possibilities of all lives lived in all time frames could have already been lived. That's a weird way of structuring it.
They're all being lived. It's just where are we looking? Right?
But it could exist in all states at the same time.
Because time only exists in the context of one individual lived life.
Right. But to choose which life is being lived is the manifestation of energy. That's the choice of in this case it would be the soul, right?
Well, they're all being chosen simultaneously.
Yeah.
So in your reading, did you notice any uniformities between lifetimes?
Well, I just kept manifesting in Alpha Centauri, and for other people, the spirit can travel from one place to another before all spirits end up manifesting here. So for me, I was just always hanging out on Alpha Centauri.
Doing any particular
The
thing,
food's really
being a
good there.
particular
Yeah. 5 stars on Yelp.
Centaurian food, is really awesome.
There weren't any specific events that came up as a result of the reading. I think I probably would need to dive deeper, like access the records more with this person to find out more about what specifically happened in some of those lives and pull out some of those memories, because it's all theoretically in the Akashic records. Everything that has ever happened or ever will happen or is happening right now is recorded there, because it's all in the collective subconscious thingy. So technically it could be there. I just need to go ahead and ask the right questions at the right time. Yeah.
Does anybody here feel like they've experienced like other lives, moments from other lives?
Like tendrils coming in
In
from
dreams or in
I had a
altered
hypnotic
states
session.
or anything?
I had a past life regression with the hypnotist.
Interesting.
And I did remember things. I did, or I conjured them, one or the other. But I did have narratives appear to me in my mind. And one of them was confirmed by Annie.
Yeah, I remember
Independent.
she's told me about
Yeah.
this.
So I went and had a hypnotic session where I was induced into remembering my past lives. And I remember the two of them that really came through clearly as distinct memories were I was a Native American or like a First Nations person up in like Canada in the Great Lakes area, like the Canada side of the Great Lakes area. And someone came and took my like newborn daughter away. They told me that she'd be better off where she was going. And they were just basically like stealing her, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't understand what they were saying. It was like an English person came and like just did this. And then I just remember like that was the last time I saw her, and then she like ended up moving to England, and she ended up marrying an English guy. I remember getting a letter, and she was like, that was the next thing I heard from her was that she was marrying an English guy. And then the end of my life was that I was in a canoe when I died. Like I was out on a canoe, and I just died of old age or whatever in the canoe. That's all I remember from that. But I was very vivid. I felt like the shoes in my feet and everything like that. And then like the takeaway message was like, don't let yourself be sold again. Like, don't let yourself anyway. And then the other one was that I was a general in the Ming Dynasty, and the Chinese general in the Ming Dynasty, and I was fighting this battle, and I had a much smaller force, and then other force was way bigger, like many times bigger than us. But I tricked them because I had most of our force go. There was like a river and a bridge, and I had most of our force go hide on the other side of the bridge, like in the forest, on the other side of this bridge, and then like a very, very small piece of the force was there, lured the attacking army across the bridge, ran them around, crossed a shallow part of the river down south, and then came back over the bridge, and then had the people pop out of the bushes, and because they were worn out then, and have the people pop out of the bushes, all these people fresh pop out of the bushes, and block them on either side of the bridge, and then burn the bridge while they were on the bridge. And I was like, then I became famous. I was like this famous general because this was my battle that made my career. And that was what I remember in these sessions. And then sometime later, but not that much later, Annie came up to me and was like, did you know that you were a general in the Ming Dynasty? And I was like, in fact, I did. How did you know that? And she was like, I had a dream that you were a general in the Ming Dynasty. And she told me a name. She had a name associated with it. And so...
Cool.
That's sick as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't had that type of thing happen to me, and that didn't pop up inside of like the past life recall stuff, or the Akashic recall stuff, rather than saying past lives, because that doesn't semantically make the most sense based on the conversation. But I have had things happen that are kind of like that with manifestation of energy, where I would set my intentions, but I wouldn't tell anybody about that, and then that setting of intentions causes other people to go ahead and other energy to get drawn to me. I had recently made the resolution to myself internally without telling anybody that, okay, I'm more or less done with technology. I'm going to leave the technology world to pursue tea full time. And I didn't tell anybody about this. I had made the resolution privately in my own home. And after a week later, just people started coming to me and saying, yo, I heard you're a tea person. I want to go ahead and talk to you about these types of things. And those are developing into getting me to go where I want to be with my intention setting. And it happened super duper fast all at once. Within 2 weeks, I had a bunch of people that were yes, I want to do all of these things with you around tea, because we're being drawn to you in some way based on this. So that was pretty interesting, and it could be like part of it is internally the mindset is there because I had set the intention to be more open to these types of opportunities, but also I didn't tell anybody about it. So how are these people reaching out to me all at the same time regarding this? What memo did I accidentally send out?
Yeah,
You know?
I'd certainly be willing to believe in some kind of magnetism there.
It's like multiple discovery theory,
Yeah.
where people discover two different things on opposite, or two.
Or the same thing.
They're the
Two
same
different
thing in
places.
two different places.
At the
Yes.
same time.
Yeah, around the same time usually. Yeah. It's just like.
It's so funny, that makes me think about how, like, lately in the past couple of years, I find that anytime I get close with someone, it's really a matter of time before, like, we are saying each other's thoughts, like, really easily.
You're very
like,
in tune with the person, or you synchronize
yeah,
with
well,
them.
it's like you're sharing the same sentences, and it's not finishing each other's sentences. It's like there's been silence, and then one of you looks across and says the other's thought. And I feel like that just happens with closeness lately.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of like, these things have been becoming, I feel like, a lot more obvious to a lot more people lately.
So does that mean that people's connections are growing stronger, or the pool of available thought forms is getting smaller?
Ooh, I don't like the second one. I don't like the second one.
I like
the first one.
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean
I think our
something bad,
access
because
is
like what is
easier.
Maybe
What
another
is-
way to say it is not smaller as so much as more focused.
more
Yeah.
curated,
Yes.
more focused.
Yeah.
I have practical thoughts on this, especially given the time that we're living in right now, is a lot of people are reevaluating their internal and external worlds, right? And they're realizing that maybe whatever it is that they're living in right now is a byproduct of society and choices that they may have had a hand in or not. Like, they're not okay with that anymore, and they want to, that manifests in a way that wants them to reach out and make those types of nonverbal connections, like emotional, mental connections without saying anything. And the sensitivity is also higher because it's been removed because nobody could go outside for a long period of time.
Right. On that kind of like line of thinking, I think, I think people can be as separate or as connected as they want to be.
Yeah.
And that, both can be true. You can have both at the same time. Like, the experience of being an individual person and of being in full connection with
Oh, yeah.
other people and the surrounding environment. That being said, I think potentially the experience of the pandemic and being in a long-term period of isolation has potentially just made it more attractive to reach out those feelers
Yeah.
for a lot of people. Like,
Let's hope so.
people are kind of maybe sending them out a little bit more because it's like, well, we actually got like a realized version of, man, I really hate all these people, can't they just go away? It's like, man, we really made everybody go away for a little bit, and so maybe we're like, okay.
I think something even happened with like, at least for me, with like the kinds of conversations I wanted to have with people when we would get together, because it would be like we were going through this whole like historic just moment together. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, didn't know when we would see each other again, meeting up outside really quick, and there's not just this, it's like all the small talk was like skimmed off the top, and it's right to like, how are you doing? Like,
Yes.
are you okay? And like, even that, just bringing that heart, like that core of care for one another forward through the experience, I think has changed the game.
So,
That was the warning,
that was it.
yeah.
And now it's
It appears to be
going again. I
Oh.
guess it stopped, and now it's going again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so we're talking about action.
That was neat.
Yeah.
Do you want to resubmit that?
Thought.
Thought.
What I just said.
Yeah.
Care, the extension of care.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that for me, and honestly for a lot of folks that I've been interacting with, we have been getting closer because there's like, the meetups feel special. Like, they feel like I don't know, almost underground kind of in a way where it's like connecting outside of like some of the normal like social frameworks, and I do feel like a lot more just like care and concern for one another has come forward in a really cool way.
Well, and we've stopped also having a lot of those acquaintance relationships where, like, for a certain time it's like, I'm not gonna hang out with you unless I really feel like I need to hang out with you. And then you kind of notice so many people falling out of your social circle because, yeah, when it comes down to it, I'll take risks to see certain people, and then others I just don't care to.
That makes sense.
So maybe I'm just like I'm having like a tighter group of people I only really care about, whereas
Yeah.
before I had a lot of just anybody.
I was talking about it with somebody recently where, for me, I have, we talk about social circles, right? Like, I have very well-defined social circles, but, like, it's kind of tiered, and there's, like, everybody is kind of in that either acquaintance or, like homie category, and then there's, like, maybe 5 people, like, total in my entire lifetime that are inside of that deep homie category, and then 0 people inside of the category that is past that. So it's being more picky about the types of connections that you want to go ahead and have is further highlighted, especially during this time frame, right? Because it's like, yeah, maybe you'll see the same people over and over again, but maybe you just don't jive with them, you know? And then you don't realize that they're sucking energy away from you until they're not there anymore, and then you see them again, you're like, oh yeah, like, hey, how's it going? You know, it's kind of like that standoffish vibe that you get, where it's like somebody's like punching you in the face over and over, but really lightly, for a year, right? And then, yeah, and then they just stop doing it one day, right? And then you're like, you get used to it after a while, and then you just ignore it, but then it goes away, and you're like, what happened? You know, it's
Quality of life.
Yeah.
Gentle
There's no punches.
yeah. What happened to the punches? I thought then you realize it, and you're like, oh, actually, it's nice not getting punched in the face all the time.
I'm really curious how many deep homies everyone at the table feels like they want in their life or can handle in their life.
That's
Like
Good
that.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
2.
2?
2.
Is that how many you have right now?
That's how many I suspect that I would be able to handle. One, it would be in a romantic space, and one, personal, like friendship. Like, I'm just not an open person, naturally. And I enjoy community, I enjoy having conversations, but, I like to be up to my own devices and just kind of float around and survey and see how people are, and then the 1 or 2 people that I have those deep connections with, I like to happen.
Me? I want to hear everyone first.
That answer
I have my
definitely
answer.
changed for me over the last several years, because
Yeah.
for a really, really long time I got so many of my emotional needs met by my twin and my mom. I mean, I have a really good relationship with my mom as well, so like between my twin and my mom, I was like pretty well covered as far as like emotional needs, and I had other really close friends a lot of the time. I think that but when I stopped living with my twin, it became much more necessary to like diversify that game, and I would say now I vibe kind of closer to something like what Bernie was saying, where I have this like tiered list of homies as far as like how often I see them and what level of vulnerability I will go with them. Typically, although that seems to be changing, and I'm kind of still, in my case, I feel like in a process of like diversifying that, looking into being more vulnerable with more people, because I was very crystallized into this one space for a really long time, and then now I'm like, well, maybe I can share these kind of it wasn't because I like, it was like I got so much out of it, like there was something so gratifying about being able to have like an internal world experience, share it with somebody who, lived almost exactly the same life as me, and then be like, yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I'm like, Yes, you do. Message received. I know. You do know what I'm talking about, and I believe you when you say it.
You were there
Now,
for that.
that's a much harder thing, but also I'm not looking for it in the same way, I don't think. I think for a little while I was looking for that in other people, and that gave me a lot of grief because it was impossible.
That's interesting, because I was thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
these days.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I feel like I don't really care about what people's life experiences are. And I don't need to like, okay, I understand you totally, or even like catch up in music from childhood time. Like yes, started just kind of vibe together. For me, those things are not in my mind, and I don't really care. So I do not relate to anyone here for those kind of experiences. Because, but for me, it's also not important. Yeah. Sometimes when people want to get into like intimacy relationships or whatever, they want to know each other's past, they want to know each other's like childhood stuff, they want to see like how they grew up. I mean, that's not important either. If it happens, it happens, and it also happens how much. Maybe for some people, we will know each other more about our past, and for some, we might know very little about each other. That's also fine. It's not important. And
Yeah.
But back to you.
I know, I think I know exactly, I feel something very similar to what you're saying, where I think for a while I was really looking for that in intimate contacts with people. I was looking for people with either some kind of mechanism for understanding, I'm gonna put big air quotes around understanding, but like, understanding or having lived something similar to what I had lived as a child, or I mean, in various capacities have some kind of like, I think I know what you're talking about kind of story. And now that seems much less important. As much as like what seems more interesting and important and meaningful to me these days is, are we kind of cruising on a similar wavelength, regardless, like we could be completely different people with completely different experiences, but are we resonating on some kind of thing right now, And that could be a momentary thing, that could be a seasonal thing, that could be, many years thing. It could last various amounts of time.
I totally feel that because I feel like it's about, for me, I'm trying to see like how much I can connect to someone. I kind of just look at them and I started thinking it's more like a mindfulness practice, but I can kind of just feel that how much I can connect to them, and also for me it's more about it. For example, we are friends, more about how much I feel or how much I can empathize with their emotions and feelings. Can I feel it when we share stories with each other? It's more important to me than just you did the same thing or they did the same thing together, and that doesn't mean that you can feel the feelings or whatever spirit energy out there. So for me, I think I focus more on like, is our energy, can our energy like match, or do we connect to each other? Yeah, that's kind of how I feel these days.
I think I'm in a similar way, because like I'm not setting a cap, like a hard cap on who goes into the deep homie category.
Right.
That's just how many are in there at the moment.
Yeah, that's and part of that is the intuitive connection of the energy that I'm having with that person or those people. Is are we all growing together and we're supporting each other in ways that doesn't feel like that we're being exhausted every time that we run into each other, Do we enjoy each other's space and enjoy silence with each other, and
doing nothing together.
yeah, just hanging out and doing nothing. I've done that plenty of times with these group of people that I'm thinking of, and it's a wonderful experience for me. But it's very rare to go ahead and have that experience with other people, because like there are so many people who are not in the deep homie category, where sometimes it's I just forget what it's like to go ahead and just enjoy space with another person in that way. and there's no expectation, there's no transactions going on. It's just we enjoy each other's company. Let's just hang out, and maybe that'll be years apart, you know. But then when we see each other again, we're like, oh yeah, that's what's up, you know. And then
That feels like you both just focused on that or be present at that moment. But most of the time, like when we hang out with people, that one problem I notice is that when I look at them, I feel like their mind is very busy. Yeah.
There's so much to keep
Yeah.
our minds all very busy.
So they are so distracted, and then it's hard to connect.
I like the tea as being the focusing activity, and connecting with people in that way. Because having tea is one of those things that is really special to me, because of this ability to connect and focus with somebody.
Speaking of tea, what are we gonna drink next?
Question.
How are you all feeling? And this was Montsho and Ihao,
Montsho and Ihao.
Xi'an Fujuan,
2017.
Good stuff.
2018.
No idea.
So good.
For Phoenix.
Jeez.
No,
We could.
That
You
sounds
went
good.
to so
I'm into that.
Naeem has gone complete 180
yeah.
on the oolongs.
Oh.
There was a time when Naeem would not drink oolongs past a certain time.
Or sometimes not at all. That was
oh, I'm sorry.
naive.
This is Iman.
Iman
This is
likes
Iman.
oolong at
Iman.
middle of the night.
Exactly.
There
Like,
you go.
this is the way it is now, huh?
That's just the way the cookie crumbles.
No, I like it. I like it. If we go in there, is everybody down for that?
I'm down. Sounds
Yeah.
sick.
Bring it on.
Shall we spiral the kundalini upwards?
Oh my god.
Do you want to do?
I don't even know what that means, but yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Do you want to do something?
Yeah, let's do a fancy guy.
Song-dong.
Fancy guy.
Fancy guy.
Here you go.
Should we get the?
We're off duty. Just chilling.
Yeah.
You're pouring.
I just don't want to move.
Locked.
That is fair.
Yeah,
Locked
we good.
in. Ah, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so.
I need to find my shoes.
How many, what was the category? Deep homies?
Deep homies.
How many deep homies do you have, Montsho?
I don't.
Or
Or Leo?
Deep.
No deep homies.
Not home trap.
What? Oh my gosh. What qualifies someone as a
That's right. It's going to be
They get
different
the-
for everybody.
Intuitive sense, I guess.
People might have different mechanisms too. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it might not be straight tiered like that. You know.
For me, I think deep homie comes really with time. A homie, for me, I think a homie is constituted by obviously liking somebody's company. For me, like what that means usually is like they can produce conversation in some form, not necessarily vocal. It could be dance. It could be music. It could be sex. It could be something. So I want a reason to want to be in the same room with a person. Beyond that, I think like how we meet each other, or how we approach each other for space sharing is important too. Like, I don't want to. I would hopefully it's equal, right? Hopefully, it's not always the case, and there are some concessions that I'll make because I really want to share space with people, and I feel like we each benefit from each other's space enough for me to reach out and be like, let me be in your life. It takes a lot for me personally to do that. So the ideal for me is to like have a mutual exchange where somebody wants to see me also and like actively lets me know that and like tries to be in my life, but also, you know, produces the feeling where I want to do that for them too.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of intuitiveness. Yeah.
Feel that.
And like doing that, for me, what makes a deep homie is probably quality time. The more quality
Yes.
time that I feel like I want to spend with somebody, that I do actually end up spending with somebody, and then over the span of years becomes like deep homie level, I'd say. And after a certain point, you're just in the deep homie level. Like I know I can tell you anything, I know I can sit you down and be like, this is what's going on, this is how I feel about what I'm doing in my life, this is how I feel about even what you're doing, you're in your life, and or whatever, and be like, we're good, we're fine. We know each other to that level. But with that time, you also, I feel like, for me, I really need some assurance that this person recognizes me now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not looking at me and seeing 5 years ago. Or even 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And it's just can be here and like see who I am.
Yeah.
And hold me that way. And that's really important for me. It's like,
Apparently we sold all the songs. We just got some, but we apparently sold it all. I remember someone
That's
visiting
cool.
us.
I mean,
Good news.
good news.
This
Yes.
is song
Mag
Jump song.
Frag.
Okay, this is.
Mag. That's a good tea. I like Mag Frag.
Yeah, I don't want to make Mag.
It's so good.
I will, but I don't.
If I knew you were going
It
to
is on the record.
I can suggest one alternative, which is that I have not yet tried the Pimpe and
I haven't had any yet.
I'm gonna make this because it's here. I'm gonna make this because it's here.
All of that in my
Good hands.
Well, I don't want to make you gave me tea that I was not interested in making.
Well, here.
It's fine.
It's fine.
I'm going to make
It's
it,
not
but I
fine.
also
It's
did
fine.
knock over the chocolate.
Famous words from when it was not fine. We're saying it's fine.
Anyway.
Do you want me to make it?
See what you
No.
said, Montsho.
Okay.
Or you want
I'm
me
gonna
to
finish what I was saying.
introduce this?
So the ideal is, yes, to have somebody who fulfills all of these things and also have multiple people who fulfills all of these things and also can recognize me now and doesn't see somebody else
Oh, that's
who
important.
I have been, prior
Yeah.
to that moment. And can
Or if you just got to check all the boxes to get into that space.
I mean, it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
It's something that I
Yeah,
do with a lot of people, and
spend time, accept somebody for who they are,
Right,
and then
and-
just hang out.
Exactly. For
I'm
multiple
picking
years,
my
ideally.
friends and
Yeah.
also developing my friends. Most of the time when I like someone and I want to be friends with them is most of the time I think I was the one who made the moves, especially the first moves. And then we just became very good friends, very close friends too. What I also want to say is I do like what you said about the space. For me, how it goes when I feel very close to someone is when we are at the same space. Yeah, like a right space, not just the A space. So we're at the right space and feel maybe we do nothing, but after you feel so much like you got energy with just spending time with them, and you feel like you can do nothing and just feel yourself. You might not be doing anything, but actually you can feel like your brain or your mind getting actually stronger, or getting satisfied or fulfilled by just hanging out with them. And that's how I feel sometimes. Oh yeah, that's great.
You know,
We don't
feeling
have
of
to-
growth somehow.
Yeah,
For sure.
we don't have to be in chaos or doing something crazy to be with each other, but just be there.
I do like being in crazy situations with people that I love.
Same.
That's usually really great.
Same.
I will say the ideal is to have multiple of these types of people, all over the world. So
I share
the
that,
number is not necessarily important, but then being dispersed is. So that I can go places and so I have more than one reason to visit a place. Like I want people to be my main reason. I feel like my destiny is very interpersonal. So it doesn't happen without people. And then they gotta like to you.
Yeah,
They gotta like to you.
I'll take an opportunity.
Here's-
a kind of alter, just another different model, which is so outside of the tea world, I work in movies, and we spend a ton of time with one another in a short span of time.
Yeah.
We basically, I've counted it sometimes, and it's the amount of time I'll spend with people on set is 12 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week for anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. So even just thinking about like how often I spend time with my closest people, even someone like my twin at this point, like Crow, it would take me so long, like so many hangouts with those people to get to that number of hours. And so that becomes a kind of very specific, time-boxed, ephemeral family there. That whole situation. And that was something that I really liked about like theater in public school. When I was in public school, like that was something that drew me into being in theater programs, was that like we had to spend all this time together practicing or whatever. I mean, it's the same with like choir or band or whatever, sports, whatever you end up doing. But theater really did that in a certain way, and sure enough, the film industry is very similar, where we get to kind of like pop up and have these very specific relationships with everybody for like for a period of time, and then afterward, everybody just goes and does their own thing. Sometimes we continue hanging out, but very often, even with the people that I have like extremely good relationships with on set, we might not see each other for like 2 or 3 years. So that's also like just a different, interesting model of that.
Yeah,
I suppose, just
the
for
work
fun.
homie is an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is maybe when I worked at Swifty, that was the first restaurant job I'd ever had where like I wanted to hang out with people outside. And then obviously the tea house, it starts with hanging out, and then you kind of like are suddenly working together somehow.
It's the other way around.
It is the other way around, which is ideal, I think. But it's so strange, like how, to me, it's very strange when I see, like, especially in service, when people actually want to hang out with each other. I'm like, I spend so much time with you. I spend so much time with you.
But only in one context, though.
Exactly.
Also, it's such
In
a
one
very
context that
public
neither of
context.
us would probably ideally be in if it weren't for capitalism.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult for me to like make the time sometimes. And,
Yeah.
but does anybody else feel like that? Is there like
I just went to karaoke with Jeffers and Scott and Andy. That was one of my first times. That was my first time hanging out with either Andy or Jeffers outside of the tea house, like being in this structure. And that was really fun.
Yeah.
A different kind of experience.
Yeah.
And Scott, I've hung out with a couple of times outside of the tea house, but it was definitely the first time I've gone out drinking with him. And that was also fun.
I feel like I'm down to just be completely 100% vulnerable with like literally anybody I meet. The degree to which I will extend myself on behalf of that person depends on my resources and my history with that person, and how much I empathize with them, in a given situation. But I mean, I empathize, but I might not be able to help you. You know what I mean? It's like whatever you need from me, I might not have that to give you, but I'll go there with someone, even just like a telemarketer on the phone. Like if all of a sudden they open up and they're like, oh, I've got this thing going on. I've got this, this thing is going on. They're willing to open up to me and be, actually, a woman came and had tea the other day, and we were talking, and she was like, actually, you came to Ramen Tatsuya a couple of years ago. You came to Ramen Tatsuya and you asked me how I was doing, and I was working the register. And I told you that I had a really bad dream, and you told me to, you like talked to me about it for a second, and then told me to come visit the tea house, and I never did, but here I am, years ago. And so,
That's cool.
yeah, it was really interesting, but like a homeless person, like just like a random person that I meet on a bench, I will just be totally, like, tell them like whatever it is that's going on my mind. Whether or not I'll continue to put energy into that relationship is, another question, but I will be there completely for that relationship for as long as it lasts. And I feel like the degree to which someone is in the deep homie category, to me, it has a lot to do with how much time I spend with them. And then there's my family. And then there's the whole rest of humanity, and to varying degrees, like I care about everybody, I love everybody, but I only have so much time. And, my family comes, me and my family come first as far as my time. And then everybody else, there's the tea house, the people I work with and the people I see at the tea house, like they're in front of me, they're in front of my eyes, and I see them on a regular basis, like Jai over there, and that breaking the fourth wall,
The third wall.
same space as us.
All the walls.
Oh, yeah.
All the walls.
Walls are
Yeah.
You were saying?
Well, and it's funny how sometimes the clean slate person,
Yeah.
like the person that you've never met before, can sometimes be almost easier to be pretty vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
Like, I find that sometimes, maybe that is something that's even kind of ingrained in me to a degree because I moved around a lot growing up, so I got used to like reinvention.
No, I think that's part of what I mean when
Yeah.
somebody can, when like a deep homie can hold you in the space of like being with you now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
that's what a new person is doing. They don't know you from any other
They're
context.
taking you as you are.
Yeah.
The context that you're creating in that moment is the first one.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
that's the ideal
Mhm.
in any case because it allows for complete and utter vulnerability in my mind. It's just like we're always meeting people, and if we're always meeting people for the first time, then that's the only context in which we are vulnerable. And I feel like that's the like garden grounds for vulnerability in the first place is being completely present with somebody.
And
Yeah.
that's
One
part of
thing-
tea culture. So real quick, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to get this in here. That's part of tea culture. They say 一次一会, one time, one meeting.
So you were saying that's tea culture.
Right. Well, that total
一次
vulnerability.
一会。
一次一会, yeah. There's a saying in tea culture. It's a Zen, it's a Chan saying, but it's also a tea saying. You see it on the walls of tea houses, which is 一次一会, and it's one time, one meeting. And in Japanese, it's rendered ichigo ichie, and they talk about it in their tea culture also, and also in Zen. But it means that there's only this one time. This cup of tea that you're drinking right now, you'll never drink this tea again. You could buy this tea, and go make it home and make it, but you're making a different tea. It's going to taste different. It's going to be different. And that's how everything is.
Well, yeah, every moment is going to be that one moment forever.
Well, there's only this one moment.
Yeah.
This one moment is all that exists, and this could be the last moment we live. It might be the first moment that will exist. We don't know. There's no way to know for sure, but we're being completely present and here for it, and that's why I feel like tea, like drinking tea like this over many years has like forged my personality in that way where I'm willing to just be there. Because like there are people, you know where it comes from? It comes from, there was one time that I was in Japan and I had my tea set. I brought my Yixing tea set with me and I was living in Japan, and this dude named Cordo Fidel, who I've never seen again.
Cordo
Fidel, yeah, this like traveling surfer dude. Yeah, this is a cool guy. He's got his own show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's Sohan show and he has his own show. And like, it was like a crossover, you know? And he was just like couch surfing before that was even a word. He was tatami surfing in our little like boys' house that we lived in, and futon surfing, I guess, and staying with us. And I remember I was in the kitchen. I was getting my tea set out. And I was about to make tea just for myself because I would do that back in the day. I'd sit there in the kitchen and just make tea for myself. I rarely do that now because I'm always doing this. But this is before any tea houses or anything. I was going to make tea by myself. And Cordo was in, like, getting something from the fridge, about to run out the door. And I was like, hey, Cordo. And just like, I met him like the night before he got in and went straight to sleep. And this is my first time like interacting with him. I was like, hey, Cordo, do you want some tea? Because I always offer everyone tea, I've been about to make tea, I'll offer whoever's without tea. And he's like, no, I'm good, man. And then he saw my tea set. He's like, whoa, like if it's like that, I'll have some tea. That's how he talked. So we sat down and we had tea, and I served him just some like jasmine pearls because that's what I had with me back in the day. This is like 2004. You know what I mean? And I served it in my like Yixing teapot that I brewed every kind of tea in, and didn't dedicate it to anything. Yeah, and we drank tea for like 2.5 hours. And at the end, I was like, well, Cordo, man, because he was about to go somewhere. I don't know what he was about to go do, but he didn't go do it. He drank tea with me instead. And at the end, I was like, hey, Cordo, man, thanks for having tea with me. And he like reached out, and he grabbed my hand with both of his hands, and he was looked very moved, like he was like almost about to cry. And he's like, no, man, thank you. It was like such a gift. And I was like, wow, it is such a gift. Like, what a great. And I never saw that guy again, but that was the first time in my life where I was like, wow. This is so powerful, not just for me, like doing this thing, like sharing this with people, like has this crazy impact. And again, first time interacting with him, last time interacting with him, still remember his name, still remember that interaction, and maybe he does too, you know, I know, but that's like, and I was like, so yeah, and we were doing that thing, just being totally vulnerable, like we'd known each other for years and years and years, and we just met.
I have similar experience, but not by being like vulnerable, just being there, about being present. But what changed you? I want to know like what does it to you, the experience? Because it seems like it's some like magic moment for you, or just a moment for you, and so talk about it.
I think what was magic for me was that it reminded me that I feel like my childhood and adolescence into my young adulthood was this process of unlearning, putting up a persona. You know, unlearning this idea that I have to craft this personality that I put forward and that this is how I am, and I'm not going to be vulnerable to everyone. I'm just going to let them see of me what I want them to see. And that I've got to keep my guard and keep my distance when I meet somebody, and we've got to play the game, you know. And I think I've been growing out of that, and I think, you know, my relationship with my first girlfriend was the first relationship in my life where I was like completely authentic. I felt that way. And all my relationships before then, there was some kind of posturing. I wanted to be seen a certain way, and then I just really relaxed into that authenticity in that relationship. But this was the first time, and then I would achieve that level of authenticity with people over the course of many trials in our relationship, you know what I mean? But this was like, I got to be in that space with him just for a few hours with no expectations, but he met me there, you know what I mean? Like we just had this deep connection, even though we had no previous relationship, but we let ourselves be vulnerable in that very like close, intimate space, and I never saw him again. And it was just it was very affirming, like our like humanness like came up against each other. It was like, this is another human soul, and like I'm a human soul, and he's a human soul, and we can never really know what each other are experiencing, but we can be here together drinking tea. And that was really, and I'd had those kind of experiences, but they were with people I had something to do with. I was going to see them again. They were my classmates, they were my roommates, they were my, you know, people in my town. They were even like my roommates in Japan who lived with me. It was different. But this guy, he was there and he was gone, but we had this moment, and nothing else came of it, and nothing preceded it, and it was just, he'd say, what, one time, one meeting.
It's so interesting, because recently I just got into like mindfulness, just want to know more about it, and spirituality, and Taoism, and tea. And I'm like, okay, now we're talking about it here. Because they are also the moments, or the moments that I feel like, oh, I feel so different. And also feeling so much more present. So it's like, oh, what's going on? So I'm just trying to just still dig deeper about it. I don't know the answer yet.
You had something you wanted to say before Sohan started your story. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I think it still ties in. I feel like I have just from the beginning of my life been incredibly approaching people with vulnerability, like having such a problem as a toddler, like running up to every stranger and just being in love, and then my parents are like, where is this child? And I feel like it's just kind of, I enjoy hearing about how other people kind of categorize their friends, because I feel like I have a really tough time. There's definitely people that I fucking don't like, but among the people that I don't not like, it's really hard to distinguish why I can't be the closest ever with that person. I feel like I can reach that pretty immediately with a lot of people, and so it turns into, for me, because I have such an exploratory nature, creating all these ephemeral families like in rapid succession. I feel like it kind of happens with like every new coffee shop I decide to like within a week, like I know all the names of the baristas and I'm getting free drinks and I'm hanging out, and then like that's my world for a little bit. I introduce people to it, and all these people that have only just met me feel very, very close to me. And so for me, like having deeper homies than that, it's like I feel like I can get lost in absorbing all of the different new things and all of the new people that I feel so passionately in the moment that I'm really about. I think for me, it's less important, like, it's less of a big deal for me that my deep homies can meet me in the present than to have them remind me what my essence is, because I'm so caught up in the present that I think that this is what I am always. And for example, my friend Nora, I've been friends with her for maybe 5 years, and we don't see each other super often, like maybe once a month or more often than that sometimes, but it'll usually be, there's been a couple weeks and a lot of updating. Like, I have so much that goes on every day with all my social bullshit, and I'm telling her all about it, and she just kind of watches me and goes like, this is so interesting because last year you were, like, she'll just remind me, like, of the actual succession of my life, while I'm kind of caught up in it. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like I had to create in my notes app, like, a tier list of friends because I was getting so stressed, feeling like I have 30 people I feel really close to that I feel like deserve an equal amount of my time because there's so much I could learn from each of them. And then I had to really go in and be like, okay, there are some of them that I feel particularly good about, and I feel particularly like I've grown or become someone better when I spend time with them. And then I prioritize those. And then there's also definitely, like, I think I forget how much social anxiety I have, because it's like running under, and it's also I hang out with mostly people that are like super chill and not gonna make me feel weird anymore, but I think it's really important for me to distinguish the people that will let me be both really quiet for hours and screaming in their face very suddenly, and people that enjoy that about me and like want to see all the different sides of it. I think some people just have a really tough time dealing with the very different versions of me, and some people really are fascinated watching all the different versions of me. And so the ones that are fascinated by it and can let the versions of me that need a lot of space and aren't going to talk to them for months, like, exist too. Like, those are the ones that can just, it is meeting me in the present, but it's also, like, understanding that my essence is going to remain, and my essence is someone that vibes with them, and I forget about my essence, and I need that reminder. But yeah, that's what I was thinking
How
about.
do you like that?
Yeah.
Because it feels like a very, very true and very open and humble attitude to interact with other people. What I learned these days is, like, I want just to be humble, not too humble. You said that, like,
I think I want to toot my own horn more than before. I think I had, I think I thought that humble was being, like, self-effacing. And I think now, I get really annoyed by people that can't take a compliment or just understand, like, who they are.
That's not really humble.
It's not, I think I'm working on my definition of humble.
Yes. When you're just humble, kind,
Can't take a
caring.
compliment is not humble.
I don't think that's humble.
Yeah.
And definitely, sometimes we feel like, I do like want to say this because thank you, just remind me. So for example, sitting here, I would say, oh, who would be my close friend? But I forgot to think of, like, what can I offer to that? Instead of always judging these people, say, oh, I don't like them, they are not my friends, or I cannot be friends with them, this I don't like about them, then that I don't like about them. So how you develop, like, deep homies, I think it's more about yourself. Instead of, like, other people matching you. Because you can't close some windows or doors off already when you're trying to reach people. So I think most of the time we focus on other people. But at this moment I feel like, sometimes me, or most of the time it is me because I choose. What about I don't choose? Yeah.
I often feel like when I'm overly focusing on all of those like judgments or discernments about people and how it relates to me as a person, like, you know, saying like, oh, this person's not this right now enough for me, or that person. It feels like a distraction. Like it feels like me just kind of separating myself and living up here instead of actually engaging with people. You know?
It's very seldom that I stop hanging out with people for a particular reason.
Yeah, me too.
I will maybe retroactively ascribe some reason, but even then, it's just I'm always just like, this is just how people flow in and out of
flow,
community with each other. You know?
Oh man, that is the opposite of. I feel like if I try to flow out of relationships in a chill way, very much in the past, I've had to deal with a lot of people that are just like scraping at like, why is the vibe not the same? Why have things changed? And I have to just like kind of be brutal on the phone or brutal in person and be like, life shifts, we are shifting. But I think I've had to end a lot of relationships intentionally because the people that I've gotten close to in the past haven't allowed for the flow of things to like change. And I feel like I'm usually just kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to be here anymore, and I can't define why, really, I just don't want to. And
relatable content. And also like how like particularly heartbreaking it can be that's like, because when it can feel like just the easiest thing in the world internally and it's not for them.
Yeah.
You know, like it can feel sometimes for me like, oh, this is not the vibe anymore. I'm gonna go do this other thing. And it's like as simple and easy as that. Like, you know, nothing, like I'm just gonna go, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go get some food.
Yeah.
You know, as simple and easy as that. And if it's not like that for somebody else, then it can become incredibly difficult. Because then we have to
This is
enter
what
a
I'm
dance
saying.
of
This is what I'm
communication.
saying. But it's also rare that people are scraping to try to keep you out.
Yeah.
That's not being self-effacing, that's just true.
It's
just true, you know,
Not everyone has
I think
sticky.
that's but you
I guess,
like
like-
you've been in my life like more consistently than like most people that I know.
Well, yeah,
Like,
because you're like my brother.
Yeah, no, I know.
But
But I feel like the people that you feel that way about, who want you in their lives, you're like there for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's also just the flow.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yes, I'm making a choice to be in certain people's lives, but there's also like there's only so much action being done there. It's just like that's where I am. And you know, I'm not talking. It's very rare also that I have to end friendships intentionally. It's not like something that I really do, because the friendships that I start are the right ones, generally speaking.
Right.
You know, and that doesn't mean that, you know, they don't come to an end, but it generally means that them not being a thing is dramaless.
Right.
If
That's
they're the kind of
everything.
person to be in your life, they're the kind of person to understand why.
Yeah, I think because they not only because at that point it's like there's that deep homey thing where we both want each other around. You know, like there's, I don't know, it's hard to describe, I guess.
Yeah,
You're
I don't
also-
know. I do believe the like let it flow, and if it really doesn't work, I think you should like try to let it flow deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe I just like I didn't really have any real friends until I was 19, and I didn't really take people seriously in that. Like I didn't expect that I would care about people at all until I was like 19. And then I think I came in with all sorts of assumptions and all sorts of fantasies formed from TV about like, well, a best friend shows up to your house without announcing themselves.
Right.
And they just go in and take the food out of your fridge, and that's intimacy. And then that happens in my life, and I'm like, I was mad masturbating. You shouldn't show up right now. And you shouldn't just like eat my friend's ice cream. Like I'm just kind of like, this is very inconvenient for my life. And I kind of like through practice of like being like, I want any sort of thing now that I realize this is a thing that I like. And also I'm such an overextending kind of person where I have, if I'm into someone, I'll just give a lot of things to them in the infatuation stage, and then I'll notice like, oh, I'm over giving, and then that's why people like scrape for me to stay, because I gave them so much that I don't
them
want
like
to.
you think what they need, or you give them that you want to give from yourself?
It's both. It's like I have a talent of knowing what someone needs to hear in a moment. Like if they're in an emotional moment, I have this switch that turns on of like, everyone get out, I am the right person for this, I'm gonna help. And then I think that's a super ego thing. I don't think it's healthy for me, and I don't think I need to be everyone's therapist, but it's just an instinct. But then, yeah, I've had a lot of relationships where people will call me every day to talk about their issues, and it's something that I didn't even think about until it's happening every day. And then I have to implement a boundary and be like, I don't have time to talk about your things every day. I don't have time to talk to you every day. Like, and this has happened to me so many times where I've ended up easily in something like that, that it's made me now be incredibly just like slow and intentional and like very communicative before I give these kinds of things, because I'm just like, I'm done with being stalked. I'm done with like all of the different things that come with people that just don't want to pay for a therapist and are like fortunate enough to meet me in a certain moment.
Right.
What I learned recently is, sometimes when you're trying to connect with someone, it's more important to know what not to give instead of knowing like, what to give.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important. We're trying to like push kind of our energy and vibes to another person, so it's important to know what not to do.
For sure.
So what are we doing next?
Well, we're gonna do this little tiny long steep of the food drawn, but yeah, anybody's got a suggestion?
Already another tea?
It's a full table.
Yeah.
Fine.
It's a small pot.
What about the good herbs?
No. No.
Fine.
Tea.
And then you go get the tea.
Yeah, does anybody have a preference?
What did we do? We did aged white.
We did H right, we did H.
Maybe
Phoenix.
time for some purple?
I was gonna say purple, yeah.
Purple tea.
Purple.
tea?
Yeah. Jonah's dressed for the purple.
Yeah. Purple tea.
Cool.
Wild purple?
Oh, God.
Wow, purple.
How about wild purple white?
Yeah,
we
wild
have your
purple
son?
white. Wild purple.
Let's do wild purple white.
White, purple, white, fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, wild purple white.
I'm game for that.
Or purple moon, whichever one we have more of.
I'm gonna go see what we have and what I feel like.
多謝晒。
How
Java would be cool too. Ooh. That's interesting.
Is that Fuji?
It's the
Fuji.
East in
Not
Mountain.
Lauren Hill and White House.
That Mogen
That
head.
is lovely.
Oh man, Montsho, you're killing it tonight. All the teas.
Yes, thank you.
That songjong was just slapping the whole time.
It's such a good tea.
Did not stop.
No,
It was
it was really
boom,
great
boom,
tone.
boom.
Was that the first one we had?
That was the one we just had. Yeah,
That's a deep cut.
That
right
songjong
there.
was LARPing. Y'all like the song Dynasty? I do. Yeah.
That was a good long steam.
Good. Yeah, that food.
That was good news.
That was good news.
Ooh,
The
I'm
gospel.
just kind of
food.
chilling with it. I'm just gonna
Yeah, it's good chi in the air right now. That's
Yeah,
song
for
hits.
That
I'm like,
this whole sequence with the effulgence and then the H, the Fujuan,
Yeah.
and then the songjong, and then the Fujuan again. It was just like.
Like I did the crown eyes right now. Just
Yeah, my head feels.
I can already see what it's gonna be like going home later tonight and being like lit up
Writing a
and
whole
being,
opera.
everyone in my house being like,
We might need to put some dollars.
we might need to do some of that afterward. We'll see what Jacob and Henry are up to. Maybe they want to hang after this, but
Play some
You
what?
should play some God.
you should definitely play some
Nice.
gun.
Play
If
some
you haven't
God.
played gun before, you should play gun.
It's fine.
I mean, is it like on some Smash Bros?
It's
vibe?
It's very
It's
similar
definitely
to
a
Smash
Smash
Bros.
Bros. vibe.
It's gonna take
Bernie,
kills.
Bernie, you've done it before.
I've
Yeah,
done it
it's
before.
more like it's much more fast paced than Super Smash, and it's like side scrollery kind of, or not scroller, but side.
Right. It's a fixed screen platformer, but with sometimes with moving parts, but generally not. In the new one especially, there's less moving parts.
Enough discussion.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Little
It's-
16-bit guys.
It's
This is a video game?
Video
Okay.
game.
Like, if
You're a
you go
samurai,
off screen,
you got a
do they
gun.
appear on the other side
Okay.
of the screen?
Samurai
Yes.
gun.
Yeah,
Okay.
usually.
Yes, it loops. For open
Chef's
screen
kiss,
size, yes.
apparently.
It loops.
Double chef's kiss.
Indeed. It's like a different kind of chef.
that's kind
One thing I'd be interested in, just kind of along this like homie discussion, just because this is something that's been kind of hitting for me recently, is y'all's relationship with online communities or online friends, the degree to which you've reached out to people through those platforms, or that you do that or don't do that. I'd be interested in all of it, and I bring this up mostly because I've recently been getting more deeply involved with communities online recently, and it's been like I found some cool people elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like that was something that really happened for me in like from like 1999 to like 2005 or something like that. You know, like initiating internet time to like Facebook or something. Like through the whole MySpace time, but then it became like something else where like I was either interacting. It became something else. But like now it's back to a place where I've been reaching out and finding, like going and searching for people online and finding people that I want to find, which has been
We were
interesting.
talking about this, you and me, the first time we met.
were.
Yeah, it was like almost a year ago
Uh-huh.
that we were talking about this exact topic. Yeah.
You know, I would like to have more interactions with people on the internet that end up being in-person hangs. I think that that's really important, and like the consummation of the tool of the internet friendship. You know,
Funny enough,
for
I've
me,
met 3 of these people from this one Discord that
that's
I'm starting
awesome.
here.
Yeah.
That's
at this tea
successful.
house.
I'd say that's like
I bring people
successful
from the internet too here a
interaction.
lot.
But like,
Yeah.
so in the context of my life, it would be probably for photography or for tea.
Right.
But and I think that like it's been pretty successful for photography. Although I wish that I was using a different medium other than Instagram most of the time.
Yeah.
That's the one that I happen to use because it's
It's
the best
there.
one for photography, unfortunately, right
and everybody's
now.
on it.
And everybody is there. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great tool, but it's also like I don't know. You know, the actual interaction on the platform is not engaging in the way that I would like to be engaged.
I found that like I've been surprised by how real though like connecting, for example, over like video chat is for building relationships, like because I find the internet to be like really critical form of like community connection, because I don't know, just finding like people within my community across space and time, it feels really important, and the internet is a major portal for that. And I run these weekly like, prayer circles for trans people, and we get together every week, same time, like hang out for a couple hours, talk, like, and then I've like met some of these folks who I've been in this circle with, you know, not even like talking to each other, but just like sharing space, seeing each other's faces. And I've met some of these folks, and like it's like there's not a gap really between what we experience of each other through that medium and what we're experiencing like together in person, which really I found very surprising, because I was like surely like we're all kind of different people when we're not on this like Zoom room or whatever. But like I've actually found it to be a bit of the opposite, which gave me which is like obviously my preferred way of connecting is not over a video chat because I like hugs and like talking to people and
sure.
you know whatever. But I was surprised at our ability to connect just from like seeing each other and like talking through that medium. And I find that like when folks were talking about like, you know, just meeting people and like that one time, one meeting, like I find that to be difficult sometimes because being like a trans person, sometimes I feel like I'm carrying this like secret that like does alter the way we might connect over reality, but then I don't know if I can share it in like an initial meeting. And so like
But online, that's how you're coming, especially to the like, transfer circles.
yeah, there's at least some more intentionality around who I'm talking to. Like, I love talking to a stranger, but it's very like a little bit like illusory to me. Like it's just kind of like this thing we do, this moment we share. But yeah, I found the internet to be really critical for like forming community. Like,
Absolutely.
Well, and especially, and this is not like a knock on the people in my immediate circles at all, but like, sometimes there's just, you know, aspects of life that aren't getting met by